Hi everybody, thank you for joining me in another algebra video. In this one we are looking at a very specific skill, and that is the difference of two squares. There is a nice straightforward method for answering these questions. The difficulty, I think, is that a lot of learners fail to actually recognise the question when it's being asked. So we're going to have a look at that and some examples. As I mentioned in the introduction, the first thing we need to be able to do is to recognise a question where we're being asked to find the difference of two squares. Now, the first thing is the question is not going to say find the difference. The question is going to ask you to factorise, because that's actually what you're doing at this point. The second clue is that, well, if you have a look at the actual phrase, the difference of two squares, if you are finding the difference between two things, then you would have to subtract one from the other. So the question is going to have a minus in the middle. Then the first term that you are going to be look at in the question is going to have a squared sign. It could be numbers, it could be letters. In this case, I am just going to use x. So the first term in a question like this has a squared. It will be something squared. Now your job is to recognise that you have a squared term for the first term. You then have a subtraction. We then have a second term. It could also be letters and numbers. Quite often the second term is just a number, and our job is to recognise that that number is a squared number. In this case I've put 9. You need to realise that 9 is 3 squared. Let's just quickly summarise that again. The question is asking you to factorise. It will give you two terms. The first term you will recognise as something squared because it has the squared symbol. It will then have a subtract, and it will give you a second term. That may not have a squared symbol. In fact, quite often it doesn't. It is up to you to recognise that that term is indeed something squared. And the nice thing about this particular skill is that we have a little formula which helps us to solve it. And we are looking at the difference of two squares. So we have a squared minus b squared. These are the two terms that we are starting with. And what we need to do is to factorise them. In other words, put the brackets in. And in the brackets, the first one has a plus b, and the second one has a minus b. So, if these two terms are squared terms, the first thing we need to do is work out the square root. The square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 9 is 3. These two new terms here are a and b. So all we do once we've found the square roots is we put them into the formula. We open a set of brackets. We have a plus b, so that's x plus 3. Close the brackets. Second brackets asks us to write a minus b, so that's x minus 3. And that is your answer. If you want to check out the answer and make sure you're correct, you can always expand these brackets using the FOIL, and you find you will get back to x squared minus 9. Of course, we're not going to stop there. We need to look at 2 or 3 more examples and look at how they might appear slightly differently. First of all, another basic one. We have b squared minus 36. And again, we're being asked to factorise. So, first job, b squared. The square root of b squared is b. The square root of 36 is 6. So now we have our two terms, b and 6. Let's look at those brackets again. They say we have to write out a plus b in the first bracket and a minus b in the second bracket. So the two terms are b and 6. So we must have b plus 6 in the first bracket, and in the second bracket b minus 6. And there's our answer. In this occasion, let's just multiply these back out again to show this actually works. Using FOIL, you would multiply the first two. So that would be b times b, which would give us b squared. We would do the outer two, which is b times minus 6. So we get minus 6b. The middle two, the inner two, is 6 times b. So that's plus 6b. And the outer two, plus 6 times minus 6 is minus 36. If we collect like terms, we have b squared. We then have minus 6b plus 6b, so that cancels out, there is nothing there, so on the end we simply put minus 36. And of course, that is where we started, therefore we know our answer is indeed b plus 6, b minus 6. Let's have a look at a slightly different one where the first term is a combination of numbers and letters. The good thing is we don't have to treat this any differently. We use exactly the same formula. So first of all, we find the square root of 16y squared. The square root of the number first, so the square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of y squared is y. And of course the square root of 25 is 5. So we open our two brackets and we follow the same rules. We know this is going to be a plus b, a minus b. So in this case, 4y plus 5 and 4y minus 5. And here's one that looks slightly different. Just take care with this. Again, no difference in the method whatsoever. First of all, we are looking for the square root of 49m squared. Square root of 49 is 7, square root of m squared is m, and of course the square root of 1 is 1, don't forget that. And then we open the brackets and it simply becomes 7m plus 1, 7m minus 1. And finally, let's have a look at one where both terms are combinations of numbers and letters. There is nothing new we need to do here except take it one stage at a time. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of x squared is x. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of y squared is y. Here are our two terms. So we have 3x plus 5y in the first brackets and 3x minus 5y in the brackets. And again, if you want to use FOIL, expand the brackets back out again, you will end up back where you started, and that helps you prove your answer. I do hope you find that useful. If you are taking an exam and you have a question which is asking you to factorise and it doesn't look to be in the normal shape of a factorisation question, consider, is this the difference of two squares? That might just help you find your route to the answer. If that was useful, please, as always, do hit my subscribe button. That would be doing me a great favour, and hopefully I will see you again in the future.